Hey, hey. Good night, good night, good night, good night, good night. Hello. I'm gonna give it a few minutes as people come in. Why is my camera moving? It's because it's not steady on this wonderful thing that I have here. So I'm gonna figure it out and hope for that. Okay, how's this gonna work? You don't need to see my whole house. Although it's clean, because it always is, but you do not need to see my whole house. Hello. Hi, everyone. Hello. Welcome. Welcome. To another episode of Fuck Your Feelings, the show. I want to thank everybody who's joining me on Instagram and on YouTube. You could be anywhere in the world, but you are here with me for another episode. I am fresh off of my trip to Cancun. For those of you who do not know, I went on a very quick vacation to Cancun with my daughter. If you have not been to Mexico, it is a beautiful place to go. Don't believe the hype. Where we was beautiful. I did not go on a resort. I don't like resorts. Hi, conceited motherfucker. Yes, I'm talking about that. I do not like resorts. I've been on an all-inclusive resort in Cuba, in the Dominican, and 10 years ago I was in Mexico again for my best friend's wedding, and we stayed at a resort called the Barcelo. But I am not the biggest fan of resorts. Thank you. Mexico is beautiful. I'm not the biggest fan of resorts because I feel like resorts are meant to keep you contained on the resorts and you don't really get an opportunity to leave and go and explore. So we just stayed at a hotel in downtown Cancun. So let me give you some pros and cons. I'm going to start with the cons. The cons of going to Mexico are if you're flying into the Cancun airport, it is not only the most disorganized airport when you get there that I've ever been in. And I have traveled to, I'd say, probably 7 different countries and 20 to 25 different states across the US and 4 or 5 different provinces in Canada. So I like to travel. So traveling, I have been flying on airplanes since I was a young child, right? And so the airport at Cancun is completely disorganized. So if you're going to Mexico and you're going to Cancun, be prepared that you need to pack your patience when you're going through immigration. Because when you get off the plane, there is just like crazy people in lines and really nobody there. So we were in probably the immigration line for an hour and a half. It was just completely disorganized. But honestly, getting there, I was just so happy. It was like, whatever, I made friends in the line. I always make friends with people. So I was chatting with people. So that is a con of going to Cancun. So if you have not been to Cancun, just be prepared. You are going to get harassed outside if you do not book a shuttle. I would say if you're going to do anything, book a private shuttle, book a shared shuttle, book a shuttle. Do not take the airport taxis. Do not take taxis actually at all when you're in Cancun. They will try to rip you up. And so if you're going to Cancun, there is something called Cancun Shuttle. When you go on Cancun Airport, it's right there. It's very reputable. They actually don't even charge you until like the day before or the morning of your shuttle. So you go, they have a sign, they tell you to wait, and then the shuttle comes, and then they take you to your designated hotel. So that's amazing. That's really great. Do not avoid taking the airport taxi if you're in Cancun. Avoid taking taxis actually at all if you go to Cancun. Going to one of the pros. It is extremely cheap to take an Uber and very safe to take an Uber in Mexico. So we took 2 Ubers. I went with my daughter. So we took 2 Ubers going to a restaurant which we loved. It was an Italian restaurant called the Cenacolo, Cenacolo, and it was in the Merida in Puerto Cancun. And from our hotel to the restaurant, I would say 3 to 5 kilometers. With tip, I paid $6 one way. $6 one way to go. It was, I want to say it was 3 to 5 kilometers. I can double check for sure, but it was $6 with tip. Whereas when I left, when I was leaving the hotel, the taxi quoted me 200 Mexican dollars, which based on the Canadian exchange rate at $12 was gonna cost me $15 to $17, whereas the Uber cost me $6. Yes, it's a beautiful restaurant. And my daughter, if you go to Mexico, if you go to San Polo, my daughter had the pasta that they actually make in the cheese wheel. It's a very beautiful, very nice. It's by Marina. I actually think I have a picture up on my Instagram story from actually going to that restaurant. It was absolutely beautiful. So definitely go to that restaurant and take Ubers. They are very safe, just like Ubers here. Do not avoid the taxis if you can. It's just, they're gonna rip you off, and I get it. I'm all about hustling, I'm all about making a living, but there's a very vast difference between Ubers and the taxis. What I'll also say is a con about Cancun Airport. It is by far the most expensive airport I have ever eaten in. So when we were leaving Cancun yesterday, we had breakfast at our hotel because our flight was a little bit later. It was at noon. We had breakfast at the hotel, but we decided, because I hate plane food, that I wanted to get something to bring on the plane. Now, they charge you in Mexican pesos. Like what you're seeing is Mexican pesos, but I do math very quickly. And the exchange rate for most restaurants was averaging about $12 Canadian. So one Canadian dollars was 12 Mexican pesos. For 2 meals and 2 7-ups, we paid 724 Mexican dollars, which was roughly about 60 Canadian dollars. So 724 Mexican dollars for 2 plates of Thai Express food and 2 7-ups, equivalent of 60 Canadian dollars. Do not do it. You avoid, if you're going to Cancun, avoid buying anything at the airport. There are these cute little stores called OXXO. It's almost like God, what's the best thing? It's like, it literally just slipped my mind, but there's that Circle K. So it's almost like a Circle K if you're American. It's almost like a Circle K, and you can go and like get your snacks, get whatever you need. Because do not, under any circumstance, yes, do not seriously buy anything in Cancun Airport. Like, it is awful. And I have been to LAX, I've been to Heathrow Airport, I've been to Miami, I've been to Fort Lauderdale, I've been to Atlanta Hartsport, I've been to the airports in Cuba, I've been to the airport in Dominican, I've been to the airport in Jamaica, both of them. Like, I have never experienced an airport as expensive as Cancun Airport. And again, I'm all about the hustle, but avoid it. But Mexico itself is beautiful. Loved it. I did a lot of walking around. It was very safe. We stayed at a hotel called O Cancun Oasis. Again, it was not an all-inclusive, so we had breakfast there, and then we would actually walk around the city. We went to Playa del Carmen, and we also went to, it's called Mamitas Beach in Playa del Carmen, or Playa del Carmen. So we did that. So it was beautiful. Travel to Mexico, do not believe the hype. It is a beautiful country. Cancun is a beautiful city. Next, I'm gonna hit up Tulum, because I've now been to Cancun and Riviera, or Mayan Riviera, depending on which way you say. And next for me on the list to go to Mexico is Tulum. So that was my vacation. I loved it. There was no turn up. There was no nothing. I went with my 22-year-old daughter, and we just both were deciding, like, we just wanted to relax. She was like, Mommy, if I want to party, I can party in Toronto. I don't need to do this big party in Mexico. We might do partying again when we go to Tulum. There is a group called Black in Tulum that I was very interested in, because we were originally going to Tulum, but maybe the next time I go, I'll go to some of the Black in Tulum events. I absolutely changed my money into pesos. I so did. Like, I actually left with pesos. I'd already changed my money into pesos. So we didn't do anything other than the Ubers. We didn't do anything with our cards. I changed, because I don't play. because I'd already done some research. And again, this was my second time going to Mexico. To be honest, things had already changed. Another thing that you actually need to know, going into Mexico, this started during the pandemic. When you are going into Mexico, you have to pay a visitor's tax, and you cannot go through immigration before paying the visitor's tax. What will happen when you're going to Mexico is your airline should send you a email that will say, hey, it's time to pay the visitor's tax. So it's called visit tax. And so you have to make sure that if you're going into Mexico, well, I know if it's all Mexico, but I'll say Cancun. If you're flying into Cancun, there is a visitor's tax that you do have to pay. You have to enter your passport information, all of that. So when they scan your passport, they'll know you actually paid the tax. It is a mandatory tax per person. It averaged about $30 Canadian per person. It is not included in your flight, and so it's an additional tax that you pay in order to enter the country. And then depending on the hotels you stay at, there's also an environmental rate that you have to pay. So we ended up paying, I can't remember how much we paid when we got to the hotel, but we had to pay an additional like environmental tax that you pay per night. So there are a couple of potentially hidden fees when you're going to Mexico, but again, beautiful place. I cannot wait to go back. I love a vacation. I love the sun. It was awful having to come back in the cold because it is very cold in Toronto. My ideal life is to be able to spend, 2 to 3 months away. I would like to spend at the end of the year. So I will tell you my dream right now. My dream at the end of the year, because my job affords me the ability to work from anywhere in the world for a month. I also get 3 weeks vacation, and we are closed during Christmas. So my office is closed from right before Christmas. So let's say like the 20th of December till after into the new year. So my goal for this year is to spend 6 weeks somewhere warm between my birthday, which is the 19th of November, into the new year. I have Tulum on the top of my list. Costa Rica has also been recommended. And so I would love to gather a group of friends, and God, I pray I have a significant other. If God is good, I will by that time, and I will go with my significant other and a group of friends and spend like 6 weeks away between my working from anywhere and vacation somewhere warm. I would like to one day move to somewhere tropical. I'm originally from Jamaica, for those of you who do not know that. I'm not sure I'll go back to Jamaica, but I definitely want to go somewhere tropical and warm. I met a Jamaican that was out there in Playa del Carmen who had opened a restaurant, and he said that he loved it. I'm actually learning French and Spanish right now so that I'm able to communicate if I go to a French-speaking island or if I go to a Spanish-speaking island. Like, I'm doing the most, okay? I am doing the most. So thank you for those. Thank you, girl. Oh my God, yes, the lady at the airport. So on Instagram, for those of you watching me on YouTube, Toronto Mermaid is saying Costa Rica is fantastic. Her ex lives there, which was interesting because as we were going through security, the lady that we met, because again, I talk to people everywhere. I talk to people in the grocery lines. I talk to people in the elevator. Like I just be talking to strangers, right? And the lady in the line ahead of us was heading off to Costa Rica. Her husband has been there, and she's like, she recommends Costa Rica over Tulum. But I say, if you have an opportunity, travel, get to know people, really get to know people. And that's why I don't like the resorts as much, because the resorts is generally full of just tourists. Whereas when you go to more of a hotel, like a downtown hotel like we did in Cancun, we ate at a local restaurant across the street. They didn't speak English, and we were trying to communicate with them in Spanish, and then we went a couple of times, and so they kind of got to know us. It was just very lovely. It was just lovely, and it really inspired me to know that like life is to be lived. And like I said, I am going to take on learning, really learning Spanish. Again, I'm learning French. I'm on a 76-day streak with Duolingo. I do speak some French because I grew up in Toronto, and French is actually the second language of Canada. So I speak a little more French than I speak Spanish, but I am going to learn French and Spanish over the next year. so that I can be trilingual, and it will open up my opportunity to live anywhere. Hey, Shelby. But yeah, so yeah, the vacation was good. Shelby, you may have to rewind this. I was just talking about my vacation. It was amazing. It was wonderful, and I recommend that everybody like spend your money on vacations. That's what I would say. Like spend your money on experiences. I don't own fancy things. But I love experiences, and I've had some amazing experiences over my lifetime, and I would pay for an experience. Like I will pay for a vacation, I will pay for an experience, because those are the things that live with you forever. But getting into the topic, because I do not want to keep everybody too long. Getting into the topic, I saw a post today, and I really wanted to have this conversation because I think it is interesting. And the quote that I saw today read as follows: dating a woman who can't control her mouth when she's angry is the same as a man that can't control his hands when he's angry. It's just a different form of abuse. So I'm going to read it again. Dating a woman who can't control her mouth when she's angry is the same as a man that can't control his hands when he's angry. It's just a different form of abuse. And so I was curious to know what the audience would think about that. I have my viewpoints, and I would love to hear other people's viewpoints. Do you think a woman who verbally is abusive, especially in the midst of an argument, is equivalent to a man who is physically abusive in the midst of an argument? So I'm going to pause there. Before I give my answer, I'm going to give everyone a moment to respond. Before I give my answer, I will tell you that the number one rule in my last relationship was no disrespect. It will be the number one rule in my next relationship as well. And although we never defined what disrespect was, I think we all understand disrespect. We feel it, we hear it, we see it. You do not need to sit down and say, here are all of the list of things that I consider disrespectful. I think you have an understanding of what disrespect is. And that rule got tested very early in our relationship. And we got together in October of 2020. We were living together by February of 2021, and we had a huge blowout Mother's Day weekend of that same year, 2021. And I don't even remember really what the argument is about. Oh, actually, I don't bore you with the details. I actually do remember what the argument was about. But people happened to be in our home when this argument was taking place. We were having the argument in the bedroom, and it then ended up spilling over to the living room where people were. And I remember just being super angry, just really angry at my ex, who ended up leaving the house with his friends. And later on, when he came back, we had a conversation about it, and he said his friends were very amazed at the fact that despite my anger and knowing that he was wrong, because his friend said, you know what, you were actually wrong. This was on you. But they were like, never once did that woman disrespect you. Never once did she call you out your name. You could tell that what she was saying was still from a place of love. It was still in a way where it wasn't vile. Again, it wasn't disrespectful. It wasn't anything. It came from a place of love. This woman loves you. After the biggest argument we've ever had, that was what his friend said. You were wrong. Your behavior was wrong. And this woman loves you, because in the midst of everything that was going on, she still respected you and showed you nothing but love. So I tell you that story to say it is completely possible to control your mouth and your anger when you are in the midst of an argument. I will give you another story. My ex-husband is former military, and he had serious anger issues. I think the military didn't help, right? I can imagine, and he was in the Air Force. So he spent many years before we got married in the Air Force. We were married at 28. He had been in the military since he was 18, 19. So basically a decade. And he was part of, George Bush's sham war, right? So he had spent some time overseas, dealing with the war as a part of the Air Force. And when we got married, we were in Vegas. That's where he was stationed at Nellis Air Force Base. Anyways, before you get married, you have to stay off base. We were not allowed to live on base before we got married. So when I got there, he had gotten us an apartment that happened to be with one of the other staff sergeants and his girlfriend and their son. And we were in, again, the midst of an argument, and my ex yelled at me for about 30 minutes straight. Just yelled, like top of his lungs. He never put his hands on me. It was never, but he was really angry. I don't even remember what it was about, but he just yelled. And I sat there like this. And if you can see my hand moving, like I literally sat there and my hand was just moving. And I'm listening to him go off about whatever it was about. And this was, 15 years ago, like 16 years ago. I got married in 08. And so this happened in 07, late 07, early 08. And he was yelling and yelling and yelling and yelling. And then when he took his last breath, and I knew he was done, I paused and I said, "Are you done? Are you ready to have an adult conversation now? Because I'm not going to engage with you when you are in this place, because we're not going to do this. Because nothing good can come of this conversation if I'm yelling back at you." He took a second, looked at me, said, "Yes, I'm ready. I apologize, I'm ready." And we continued to engage in an adult conversation, because yelling at me is not adult. So the next morning, I woke up, and the girlfriend of his roommate, our roommate, was there, and she said, I'm sorry to be in your business," but she was like, "Girl, how did you do that?" And I was like, "How did I do what?" She said, "How did you manage to sit there and not yell back at him, not say whatever?" She's like, "I was there, I was listening, he was yelling loud, and I never once heard you say anything until he was done." And she said, "You responded in the calmest voice ever." And I said to her, because nothing was going to come of me yelling at him. Nothing good was going to come of this conversation. And to be honest, I used to say, not to my ex-husband, but to my ex-fiance, my most recent relationship, I used to say to my ex, "Listen, I curse you in my head at times. There are times you were saying things, and I'm going to be honest with you, I curse you in my head. But because it filters through my head, it never comes out of my mouth. And the reason it does that is because I'm thinking of all of the different scenarios that will happen if I respond with what I'm thinking in my head. And because my goal in my relationship was always to stay together, I knew that there were certain things that I could say that we could never come back from. And so they would filter through my head, and I would say to myself, "Toshiba, we're not going to do this. You're not going to say this. We're going to let this moment pass, and we're going to deal with what we need to deal with." And I tell you those stories to say, I completely get. And listen, let me actually take it back before I respond. Having somebody yell at you is not a good feeling. Having somebody express themselves angrily to you is not a good feeling. And when you're a woman like myself, who happens to date bigger men. My ex-husband was 6'5", 240 pounds ish. He's a bigger guy, and again in the military. So imagine like this big 6'5" man, being upset and just yelling and expressing himself angrily. Not a good feeling. And then my ex-fiance is 6'9". He was a little slimmer, so 6'9", probably 195 to 205. So bigger men. And I never felt upset. I never felt intimidated. I never felt anyway. Like this, unfortunately, was how they expressed themselves because I understood their own childhood crap. I was dealing with an ex-husband who was in the military. And if you've ever dated or been in the military, ever been a woman who's dated a man or married a man in the military, or if you're a man who's been in the military, let's really all recognize that the military for Black men and for men in general is just not a good thing. I can speak for Black men because, my husband was Black. I think the military offers a lot of opportunities, but there's a lot of crap that you also have to deal with. And unfortunately, sometimes your spouses have to deal with it. However, and I say all that to say, yes, that is how they express themselves, but it did not mean that that's how I had to express myself, right? I did not mean that that's what I was expressing myself. And I will say, none of the words that they said were derogatory. And going to what Riley's comment is, because I'm about to get to that. Words hurt. And nothing that my exes were saying in their moments of anger and expressing themselves angrily were hurtful. We never in anger should call people out their name because, to Riley's point, words hurt. And I always say, people, there are two things you cannot get back: the words after you've said them and your time. These are the two things we don't get back. You don't get to say some disrespectful stuff and say, oops, because you've already said it and it's already been hurt and it's already out there. What says to me, if you're saying it to me, you were already thinking it about me. This was just the opportunity for you to express it. And I'm going to see what Riley's saying here. People need to be honest. Words do hurt, absolutely. And I think we have to understand that. And, the question I asked on Instagram is your mouth the reason you're single? And for many people, that answer is going to be yes. Your inability to control your anger when someone else makes you angry is the reason you're single. Because at this point, you lock eyes and you said it's on. The thing about anger is, and I need people to understand this, because I sit here as a 44-year-old woman who has been through some things. I have experienced relationships. I have experienced marriage. I have experienced divorce. I've experienced a lot of things, right? I am a mother. There's a lot of things. I've experienced heartbreak. I've experienced it all. And to be honest, I could, on one side of me, have my daughter's father, and at the other side of me, have my boyfriend after my daughter's father when I was 23, 24. I had my daughter at 21. We were together until she was a year old before I turned 23. And then when I was 23, my ex. These two men who have not been in relationships for 20 years can still say to you, she was a good woman at 2021 and 23, 24, 25, right? Like, I was still a good woman, even though I have I've gone through some things since then. I can sit my previous fiance, I would have sit my ex beside you, and he will still tell you, as a 40-something-year-old woman, I was still a good woman. You have to choose to be a good person. And if you choose to be a good person, no one should take you outside of that. Why? Because no one should put you in a place where you are giving up your power. When you get to a place where someone can take you outside of yourself, you have to consider, is this situation and this person worth it? And yes, you know what, you be like, Tashiva, girl, whatever. It's easier said than done. If somebody's calling me out my name, I'm gonna show them. I saw a post the other day, and it was a young woman, and she was sitting at a desk, and it was showing like her husband standing up, and she kind of turns around, and it's like, when your husband is yelling at you, you have to decide, do I want to cry, or do I show him that I'm from the hood, or something like that, right? Like something is, it's either I'm really emotional, I'm gonna show him that, I'm not the woman to mess with. And I was like, and then the question was like, oh, ladies, which would you choose? And I was like, neither. Neither. It's called adulting, and we have adult conversation. There's not two choices, just tears and then explosive anger and showing him that you're from the hood. There is communication. I don't like when you speak to me like that, and when you speak to me like that, I shut down. And I consider these two options. And because you're my husband or my partner or my wife or whoever, and I love you, I don't want to do that. So I'm going to suggest that we find better and effective ways to communicate. Because I don't like it. Seriously, I don't like it. Why can't we do that? Why can't we do that? And I think it goes, and I think it goes for men as well. And again, I don't speak to men, I speak to women, and I will say that over and over again. That if your go-to is automatically to be yelling, then you need to figure out what happened to your emotional intelligence. Why are you not emotionally mature enough or emotionally intelligent enough to be able to have a conversation with the woman that you love in a calm way? That is something that you're going to have to deal with. And sorry, guys, I'm trying to find so that I can pin some of this videos on comments on YouTube so I can see it. Hold on. I'm going to pin a comment on YouTube here. And how can I pin the comment? There we go. That, and I'm gonna find myself on YouTube, and then I can read the comment. But we really have to consider and understand our triggers. Do you know what your triggers are? Do you know? Do you know certain things that are just going to trigger you at all? So you say, if I'm in a situation and someone does this or someone says that, this is going to be triggering. And so therefore, if I find myself in this situation, here are the alternatives for me. Because I don't want to ever put myself in a position that I'm going to react in a way that I cannot come back from. Or this is not the type of person I need to be in. Or if this is someone that I love and I want to keep and I want to be around, here are the steps that I need to take. And also communicating with people and saying, listen, when I find myself in these situations, this is how I react. These are conversations we need to have. And I question for us why some of these conversations are not happening. Guys, give me 1 second. Let me actually find my own damn channel. So I can, I found it last week, and now this week, I do not know. I had to go back and find the live show because I'd be doing too much. But we need to be able to communicate with people and about how it is that we react in situation. And that's a level of maturity that at our big age, because most of you watching here, you're not young kids, right? Like, I'm not talking to 20-something-year-olds. I don't do that. I'm not with the 20-something-year-olds. I'm talking to grown 40, 50, maybe 30-something-year-old people, but I'm not talking to people in their 20s. And when you get to a certain age, you need to have a level of maturity to be able to communicate with someone about what is going to trigger you and know your triggers, so you're never in a situation where either as a man you need to use your fist, or as a woman you need to be using your words, because those words, boy, let me tell you. So Riley on YouTube says, wow, I know young women at 24 experiencing trauma bonding. They got no kids yet. That's a dangerous thing. And I'm not even going to sit around and pretend that I understand the full concept on trauma bonding. But here's the thing, that's never going to work. Bonding with someone over shared trauma is never going to work. You have to heal. And I understand that some of the reactions that we have is because we're coming into situations unhealed. And again, we do not have the emotional maturity to understand that. Emotional maturity doesn't necessarily come with growing and aging. And not all of us have it. But if you are a person who is emotionally mature, being with someone who's not is not going to work, because you're at two different stages in your life. And you might think that person is amazing and you might think that person is great, but honestly, for the life that you want to live, is that the person you should be settling down with? Is a question that you have to ask yourself. And if you are in a place where in an argument, your natural reaction to someone is to go and, you know, what is it, pop off at them? That's the word I was looking for. If your natural reaction is to pop off at them, then I'm so Jamaican, right? The way I say pop off is to pop off at them, then you need to say, maybe this is not a situation that I need to be. Riley's saying, since you have a daughter, what would be the best advice you will give to young women who got trauma bonded? The best advice I would give someone is to get healed. Heal yourself from whatever it is that has put you in a place that you are bonding with someone who you know is not potentially good for you. What is going on with you? Because there's something, and we all have something. We are Black people living in a world that's not for us, right? So we all have something, whether you grew up in a two-parent home, a single-parent home with a single father or a single mother, whether you were raised by grandparents, whether you were raised in the foster system, there's always that we all have something. There is something that we need to heal. And I think one of the biggest problems that I'm seeing a lot are unhealed people getting into a relationship and then not taking responsibility for their actions when they were in those relationships and why they got in those relationships. Because everyone, we still have a choice. Going back to the scenarios that I just told you about, my 6'5", 240-pound husband yelling at me for 30 minutes straight, I had choices. I chose one that protected my sanity. The choice was to tell him, as a Jamaican, about his bumbleclot, Rossclot, pussyclot, and tell him, like, I could just go off and curse him stink, tell him about his mother, his father. I could have disrespected his member and told him he's got a small wee wee, or whatever came off the top of my head. Not the person that I am, so that would not be my choice, but it is an option. I could cry and go off and slam doors. I could use my hands and hit him if he's done something. Or the option that I chose was just to sit there, allow him to express himself, even though it is not a way that I would have expressed myself, but allow him to express himself in the way that he did, and then attempt to have a calm conversation with him, because this is the man I had chosen to marry. We weren't married then. We were married a couple of months later, but this is the man I was going to marry. This is the man I chose. And if this is the man I was going to live my life with, how was I going to be able to deal effectively with this if this was going to be my forever? Because again, my response to him would have triggered a response. This is called the action-reaction game. I need us to understand, when we go tit for tat, it becomes the action-reaction game. You act, I react. You act, I react. You act, I react. And usually the action and reaction are not positive. If you've ever watched an episode of Paternity Court and you're standing there and the man says, well, I don't think the baby's mine, because she cheated, normally the woman says, well, you cheated first. And you cheated and you weren't treating me well, so then I went out and cheated, and now they're in a situation of cheating. Okay, so now there's all of the situation of cheating, and now there's a baby. And I think not knowing who your child's father is like the most scandalous thing ever. Like, I think that's awful. Like, to not protect yourself and sleep with multiple men and not have a period and not even protect your womb, I think is completely scandalous. And then not knowing who the baby's father is. So that's embarrassing on its own. And then you're on national TV and you're talking about, well, the man cheated on me and that's why I did it. Protect your womb. But that's another story for another day. But that ends up being the action reaction game. Nothing good can come out of the action reaction game. And so, speaking to my ladies, if you are in a place where your go-to is to use your words to harm your man, you need to consider it. Is this a relationship I need to be in? Does this best serve what I am looking for? There are some other questions coming in. Thank you. Listen, Riley and Shelby on YouTube have held me down for the past couple of months. They have been here. They are asking questions. I appreciate the both of you so much. You don't even know. So Shelby's asking, from your viewpoint, how many times should an individual be forgiven for not controlling their emotions, mouth, before one walks away? That is a very good question. So I believe in second chances. And I think we have to sometimes teach people how to treat us. That's really important. You have to teach people how to treat you. I will give you an example. I remember years ago, so I don't, if I am with a man, I don't open my own doors, right? Like I will walk to the side, I wait for the man to open the door, I go in. And I remember, this was again, 15-ish years ago. I was in Louisville, Kentucky, and I went out on a date with a gentleman, and he came to the door to get me, and then when we were going to the car, I stood at the door and I just stood there, and he kind of looked at me, and I just stood there. And then he got what I was saying, that I wanted him to open the door. And, as we were going through the date, he, opened all of my doors. And he said to me, and he was a very handsome man. He was a pro ball player. Women just swoon over him. The man was gorgeous, right? And we ended up getting into a conversation, and we were talking about that. And I said, you know what, like, my father has raised me in a certain way. And I think it is important to show people right up front how to treat you. And he said, I respect it because there's a lot of women who just let me do whatever. And the fact that you have certain standards tells me that I have to rise to those standards. And if I can't rise to those standards, I need to leave you the hell alone. Going back to your question, Shelby, you have to teach people how to treat you. And I think if you have experienced disrespect one time and it's one too many times for you, then leave. If it is to the point where you say, you know what, I am willing to have a conversation with this person to let them understand that that behavior was unacceptable. And if they were ever to do this behavior again, I'm going to leave, and the behavior happens again, you have to leave. You actually do not have a choice. You have to leave. Why do you have to leave? Because you have to show them that you are serious. You have to make them understand that this is a non-negotiable for you, and you're going to leave. Because the problem then becomes, if you say, I am going, you know what, I'm going to leave, and they do it again, and you stay, and you do it again, and you stay, and you do it again, and you stay, it means nothing. They're like, oh, I can just walk all over Shelby. I can walk all over Toshiba. I can walk all over Riley. They're not going to do anything. Their threats mean nothing. So I can continue to exhibit this type of behavior, and they're going to enable my bad behavior. I think second chances are important, but I think anything beyond that, if you have said to the person, if you were to act in this manner again, I am going to leave, you have to go. You have to go. It is not for you to modify how you want to be treated. It's for people to treat you better. It's just that simple. I'm not going to say to somebody, I don't like the way you're treating me, and then they treat me that way again, and then I keep telling them I don't like the way that you're treating me. Like, the definition of insanity, as we all know, is doing the same behavior over and over again, expecting a different result. So you go the same action, and you're like, oh, why is this not working? I'm doing it, but you're doing the same thing. And every time you do it, you expect a different result. That's not even how experiments work. When one experiment fails, guess what? They take a look at it and they change something slightly, and they do another experiment until it actually works. They don't do the same thing over and over again and say, if I do it again, I'm going to move it to the east and there's going to be a different result. That's not what happens at all. Okay, so there's another question. This is a great question. So Riley is asking, when and how to set boundaries if anyone gets out of line. When? Right away. Right in the beginning of your friendship, your relationship, whatever, if it's a coworker, it is right away. Right away. If somebody has done something that you do not like, you do not wait to call out the behavior, you do it right away. You know what? It was funny. I always used to dislike when I watch shows and a child would misbehave, and then the mother would say, you know what? Wait till your dad comes home. And hours later, the dad comes home, and the dad is talking to the child about the behavior that they're no longer exhibiting. So the child is confused as to why I'm having a conversation, especially if they were being good when dad comes home, about behavior hours ago. They're disassociating. They're like, I don't understand what's happening. It's a mixed signal. Whereas if the mother had corrected the behavior right then when the behavior happened, the child is associating the fact that this behavior is not to be done again because mom is going to act in this way. And yes, dad can have a conversation about it later and say, listen, your mother told me what you did, and I know she had a talk with you, but daddy wants to reiterate that that behavior is unacceptable. But to not address it and say, wait till dad gets home, the child doesn't associate the two. They're like, what the heck is happening? A lot of us are still in that child mode. So if I exhibit bad behavior and you do not set any boundaries, I'm like, okay, I can just keep doing this. Why would I stop it? So for me, it's when you're getting especially into an intimate relationship, going back to what I said earlier, of you need to teach people how to treat you. You need to set those boundaries right away. With my ex, our no disrespect rule happened, I think, within the first week of us meeting. Now, we got into a relationship in 10 days, so that says a lot, but it was in the first week of going into a relationship. I need you to understand, this is the one thing that I need you to understand, that if this happens, I have to go. And it's, how do you do it? Through communication and conversation. It's just that simple. Have people understand, this is how I envision my life. So for me, I say to people, listen, my peace is very important to me. I protect my peace at all costs. What does peace look like for me? So some of the things that I do to protect my peace is I meditate in the morning and I work out, right? Those are two things that are really important for me. Because my peace is ensuring that, again, I'm taking that time to reflect. That's what my meditation is. And I'm also taking care of my body. and my mind, because that's what working out does for you. It's not just helping your body, it's also helping your mind, seeing the endorphins that happen. Another way that I protect my peace is making sure that I'm communicating with the people in my life at all times. If I am not comfortable with what's going on in a relationship, I make sure that I communicate. How do I like to communicate? Well, I can tell you that I do not respond to yelling. I do not respond to a negative approach. So here are some things that I need to understand, that if we're ever in a situation where you feel that I have wronged you, or I feel that you've wronged me, this is the approach that I would like to take, because this is the best approach that protects my peace. Because this is how I live my life. And if this is something that is you're not accustomed to, or if it's something that you feel that you can't adhere to, let's have this conversation now, because I cannot afford to bring anyone into my life who's going to disrupt my peace. That wasn't so hard, right? At least I don't think it is. We teach people how to treat us. We set rules and boundaries right in the beginning. Here are things that I find intolerable in a romantic relationship. And if these things were to happen, as much as I might care about you, as much as I may love you, it is important for me that I am going to protect my peace. I'm going to protect my sanity. I'm going to protect my space. Whatever it is, however you choose to communicate that, you're going to let them know that. Okay. this is this is a really good comment. I'm waiting for the pop on the screen. So Shelby says people have two eyes, two ears, and two hands. So I give two chances. That's funny. It's funny. There's a saying that you have two ears and one mouth for a reason. So I say that often. I would say God gave me two ears and one mouth for a reason. And my two ears are to listen. Listen to what people say and listen to what people do not say. Listen to the tone of someone's voice when they're saying things for you. Like, there's a lot of reason. And then only through listening, again, and like I always say, there are two different ways to listen. There's listening to respond, and there's listening to understand. In a romantic relationship, you should always try to listen to understand, because listening to respond is what gets those explosive responses. Because if I go back and I say to people, fuck your feelings does not mean that I do not care about my partner's feelings or those of yours. Fuck your feelings premise is as such. When you're in a situation where someone is expressing their feelings, you do not allow your feelings to invalidate theirs. Therefore, if someone says something while expressing their feelings that hurt yours, that is not the opportunity for you to say, I do not want to have this conversation anymore. You just hurt my feeling by expressing what's going on with you. That is a moment for you to take a step back and listen to understand. You might want to take a notebook and note that down, so that when you're going back and it is your turn to engage with them, you might want to point out, there was a point in this conversation that I, felt a certain way when you said this. And in the future, can we just try not to do that? Because it hurt me. And it hurt me in a way that I almost responded negatively. And I know that that's not what I want to do. And listen, people can say it's easier said than done. I've done it. I did it for years. It is very possible. Because when we truly care about someone, our immediate reaction shouldn't be to destroy them with our words. Our immediate reaction should not be to invalidate their feelings. Our immediate reaction should be to, let me take a moment, listen to what they have to say, try to understand their perspective and try to work this through because I care about them. I always say when I am in a situation that makes me uncomfortable, in a situation that could go left, I think about all of the different scenarios in my head. I am playing through all of these scenarios, right? Like, if I were to do this, this is the potential outcome. Is this an outcome that I can live with? If I were to do this is the potential outcome. Is this an outcome I can live with? One of the another premises of the show is the reason I say to people to fuck your feelings is because you do not want to make a permanent decision on temporary feelings. Many of us have lost perfectly good relationships or perfectly good friendships because we made a permanent decision on temporary feelings. There are a lot of divorced people right now who wish they could take the moment back when they said, I want to get a divorce. I am no longer happy in this relationship. I want to get a divorce. Because guess what? That was a moment in time for them. They were not feeling great. Their partner was working too hard. They didn't feel that they were getting enough attention. They were potentially unfulfilled. All of these different reasons. It was not infidelity. It was not financial instability. It was not any type of abuse in any way. It was just, I'm not feeling great because my husband's working too hard. And considering women file for divorce more often than men, it's generally the woman who feels that way. And then she utters out, I want a divorce. The man hears that and he's thinking, I'm doing everything to keep this family together. I am providing, I'm doing all these things, and this woman wants to leave. Okay, then leave. And then a few months later, a few weeks later, a few years later, whatever happens, and that feeling is gone, and that woman's like, I had an amazing husband, and I let him go because I was going through a temporary state. So a lot of the times we need to consider when we are in situations that, is this a temporary situation or is this something that is permanent? Am I can I live with a potentially permanent decision if I were to say this to my partner? I keep saying, everyone, that dating and relationships are not as complicated as we've made them if we would just ignore a lot of the noise that is happening on social media. There is a lot of noise on social media. There is a lot of people who will tell you that Black relationships are in a completely bad state and they cannot be fixed. That is not true. That is not true. Black relationships are not in a terrible space that cannot be fixed. That is a lie. But it sounds great. It sells, it goes viral. There are blogs that are making millions of dollars over showing us dysfunctional Black relationships. The Shade Room, Jasmine Brand. What's the other one called? Crap. There's another one called Spiritual World. Another one. I actually unfollow all of these blogs. Shade Room is the worst. Jasmine Brand, that's supposed to be this uplifting brand when she started out about women, it's just become awful. It shows the most dysfunctional Black relationships as if to show to the world, and these are Black people running these sites because it makes money. Showing loving, beautiful Black relationships is not good business. A lot of people benefit from spewing these vile things about Black relationships. There are a lot of industries that benefit by having unhappy single women. Seriously, can we really think about this? There are a lot of industries that benefit from us doing this. When we come together and we join together, those industries do not benefit. And so therefore, they're going to hawk these ideas and they're going to pump even our own Black people. Unfollow a lot of those blogs. They're showing you the most dysfunctional Black relationships as if they're normal. They're not. I see beautiful Black relationships around me every day. People who are happy, who are committed, who are thriving. And they're on social media too, but guess what? They're drowned out by the sensationalized idea that Black love is fleeting and Black men and women will never come together and there are no good Black women and there are all of these spaces. You guys don't even understand the hate that I get on YouTube, especially. Men who are telling me I will never find another man and I'm not worthy of a Black man. And luckily, you can say whatever you want about me. I like drown out that type of noise because I know I've got amazing people who listen to what I'm saying. But there's a lot of negativity happening. And if you get caught up in the negativity, you will truly believe that we are just doomed as Black people when that is not true. Black women, it is not true that Black men do not love us, that do not care about us, they're not protecting us. I feel protected every day by Black men, every single day. The men in my, listen, when I was going away to Mexico, because I am not in a relationship and I was also traveling with my daughter, several Black men in my life reached out to me and said, please make sure you give me all of the details of where you're staying, your flight information, just so that we can be aware of where you are. I didn't even ask for it. They reached out to me, understanding she's a single woman going with her daughter. She's got no man with her, and she's not in a relationship, because I used to either be traveling with my ex or I would share that information with my ex. I don't have anybody to share it with. And so they were reaching out to me to help to make sure that I was good. This is actually the reality of Black relationships. And these are not men I'm intimate with me, but they're men I'm friends with that love and care about me just from a friendship perspective. The noise that we're seeing and we're hearing is noise. And I pray that one day this show breaks through some of those noise, because I really am committed to changing the conversation around Black relationships, because I'm telling you, it is not true. It is not true that Black men are not protecting us. It is not true that Black men prefer white women or Latino women or Asian women. It is not true. Men as a whole, Black, white, they want feminine women. And in the words of Kevin Samuels, I don't believe people don't like Kevin Samuels, but they want women who are cooperative. They want women who take care of themselves, mind, body, spirit, physically, financially. Because one day, if those women are either raising their children that they have biologically, or you're coming in a family together to raise children together, they want to make sure that that woman is going to be able to pass on amazing traits to those children and bring them out into the world. That's all men. And so if you present yourself in a package that says to a man, this is not a woman that I can see as being my wife, I can see as being potentially the mother or stepmother or bonus mom or whatever to my children, I can see helping me elevate, I can see bringing into a boardroom, bring into wherever, I can't date her. This is not a Black man saying that I don't like Black women. It's him saying that he doesn't want you, because you don't fit into the life that he sees for himself. We need to stop it. And we need to stop listening to the noise that is out there, because it's being sensationalized. I will say it again. Black women, Black men love you. I see them every day. I encounter them in my life every day. Every day. I see them when I'm walking down the street. I see them when I'm taking public transportation. I see them when I was in the airport. I have them in my life. Please stop listening to noises that Black men do not want this. Please take a moment to heal yourself internally so that you can be the best version of yourself for the Black men that you desire. And being the best version of yourself is not being quick to anger and popping off at the mouth if someone says something that triggers you. Sometimes you have to wonder, why am I triggered? There's a lot of things that get said on social media. There are a lot of things that get said on my social media pages. I have over 1,200 subscribers on YouTube, and not all of them like what it is that I have to say. There are some who told me that I am not a virtuous woman because of the way that I dress, and I'm never going to find a man, and I'm only going to be used for sex, and blah, 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 and who would marry me. I do not care. They do not represent all men. They don't even represent all Black men. They represent a very small fraction of men who have decided to go on a crusade to belittle women because of their own personal things. That does not represent Black men. And to the Black men, the women who you're seeing on Kendra G, who are coming on, who are vile and disgusting with the multiple children by multiple men who are on Section 8 and all of those different things, they do not represent all Black women. Kendra G made a point on a recent show. You've got the Michelle Obamas and you have the Sexy Reds. Sexy Red does not represent all Black women. Michelle Obama does not represent all Black women. There is a range of Black women. So for the men and women who watch this show, if you are not attracting the people that you want, the first person you have to deal with is yourself. Why is it that I am not encountering people who I want? Why do the people that I want not want me? What do I have to do? Where do I have to go? Is there something that it's about me? I never project that onto other people. And what I will not do is allow somebody's words to trigger me to the point where I'm going to act out of character. And again, if you are dealing with people and they're saying things that you're triggering to the point where you want to pop off at the mouth, you really have to consider the work that you have to do within yourself. Why did what Toshiba said trigger me? Why did I want to react in this way because of what she said? Is there something in my life that I do not like? Why is it that the people that I want to associate myself with not want to associate with me? What is it that I can do to put myself in a better position so that there's like, these are why, what, where, when. Like, these are questions you ask yourself. It is not projecting. We need to stop the projecting, and we need to stop listening to, again, the noise that are telling us that we are not loving each other, because this is not just my experience. I don't speak here as one Black woman saying, oh no, Black men all love me, so I don't understand what's wrong with you. I am surrounded by Black women who are being loved properly by Black men. My brother is about to get married, and he picked me up from the airport yesterday with his fiance. And like, this woman doesn't even understand how lucky she is to have my brother, right? Like, he loves this woman so much, and she knows now just how grateful. My brother was planning a surprise wedding. He had a whole plan of how he was going to propose to her and get married to her on the same day. He was planning everything. I was crying at what he was describing because of the love, and I see how them coming together, their lives have elevated together. My brother is not in the same position he was 2 years ago before he met this woman, and neither is she. They have worked together and their lives have elevated together. I'm surrounded by that, and I look at that. I saw a couple on my trip to Mexico, and they had been married for 30 years, and they took this they were on the tour with us when we went away, and I was asking this beautiful couple question. There was a point where the woman was putting eye drops into her husband's eyes, and they just had this love. And this is what I see, because I choose to see that. I choose to see the best. I choose to focus on the best. My mind goes to the best. It does not go to the negative. I do not use narrative like ninjas aren't ish, and therefore if a ninja does this, when I write my dating profile, I write it from a very positive stance and not a negative stance. Change your mind, change your mindset, figure out what's going on, because I don't want you to be in a place where your mouth, ladies, is the reason you're not in a relationship. Because honestly, let's stop the cap. Nobody wants to be 60 and alone. God damn, most of us don't want to be 40 and alone. Stop it. We need to stop it. And so, again, I do this show because I want to change the conversation around Black relationships. And I'm going to keep showing up every week, and I'm going to keep showing up every week, and I'm going to keep having difficult conversations because we have to. Communication is the only way to get through a lot of this noise. Effective communication is the only way to get through some of this noise. Intentional conversation is the only way to get through some of these noise. Listening to understand and not to respond is the only way to get through the noise, because a lot of the stuff that you're seeing on social media about Black relationships is noise. It is noise to distract you from the reality that is happening. We are better together than apart. And they have literally created a system and created businesses to keep Black men and Black women from being together. If you do not understand it, you're missing it. There have been businesses created to keep Black men and Black women apart because they make more money when we are apart than when we are together. I am very serious. Pay attention. Join me on this mission to change the conversation around Black relationships. Have these conversations with your friends, have them with your families, have them with your mothers, have them with your fathers. Like, really dig deep. Find out what is blocking you from having the relationship that you want. Figure out why the relationship that you're in isn't working the way you're supposed to. And if you've got an amazing relationship, ask your partner, how can I love you better? Because I hope to one day ask a man that again. Okay, so interesting story before I end. So I was recently, I'm back on the dating market, and I was recently asked by someone to be with them, to be their girlfriend, and I said no. And the reason I said no is I think he's great, and I look forward to getting to know him more, but I didn't know him well enough. And my next relationship is going to be my last relationship. I've said that I am going to be much more intentional about how I date. And as much as we are vibing right now and things seem good, there is no intimacy. I've done told you, I done locked down the cookies. And ladies, so yes, ladies, it is possible to meet a man and your cookies are locked down and they still want to be with you. Do not believe the hype. You do not have to have sex with a man. You do not have to lead with sex. I am not leading with sex. I have met this man. We have gone out on a date. We've got great conversations. I have not given him the cookie. I've not even kissed him, but I am showing up in his life in a form that he really likes. But I was like, at this rate, I want to ensure that my values are aligned with someone, that my goals are aligned with someone, that we have kind of the same vision, that again we can have and create this life that's gonna work. And as easy as it is for me, because I love and I love relationships, to say yes, let's do this. I am in a position that I do not want to fail at a relationship again. I do not want to sit here with another person in front of all of you, and then in a year or two it doesn't work. That's just not what I want for myself. And as much as I cannot predict what life is, I can be intentional. I can be more intentional. So I'm going to continue to date. I'm going to date him. I'm going to date people. And let me tell you, for those of you in Toronto, if you see me this summer, with different men, mind your business. I'm auditioning. Okay. Okay. I am auditioning these men as they are auditioning me. It's funny because when people see certain men with a bunch of women, they're just like, oh, he's just being a man. But when women are dating, they think we're giving out our pum pum. I am not. There is no action down here. It's going on almost a year. March 14th will be a year. I'm very proud. I'm happy for my 1-year anniversary, because when you take sex off the table, you are surprised what happens. When sex is not on the menu, you actually have to converse and be intentional and have conversations and get to know someone and ask them really good questions. I'm looking to be a wife, and so therefore the person that I am dating has to be in the mindset of a husband. And I'm at a space where I'm asking men, if you want to be a husband, tell me what that life looks like with your wife. What is the life that you've planned out? You know what I'm saying? Like, and if he can't really effectively answer that question, I can say, you might want to be a husband, you're not ready to be a husband. And so I asked the gentleman that I'm dating that question yesterday. He didn't have a concrete answer. And I said, so he might want to be a husband. He's not ready to be a husband. And until he's ready to be a husband, that's just not someone that I can be with. It doesn't mean that he won't. When my brother met his current fiance, he was not ready to be a husband. He was just dating and having fun, and he would tell me about these women. I was like, God, don't let me meet any of them, because you're not going to be serious with none of them. When he called me, when he met this woman, I knew she was going to be the one, because his whole mindset and tone and everything changed about how he spoke about this woman. I said, okay, I will meet her. The other women, I was like, do not introduce me to them. And they all wanted to meet, oh, your sister, I should meet your sister. And I was like, why? I don't want to meet any of them, because they're not going to be around. And there's just too much effort. And I'm not doing this. But this woman, I was like, his whole mindset, how he spoke about her, he talked about the future. I was like, this is the one for you. And so I will meet her. And ladies, we have to listen to these things. If a man is not talking about a future with you, he does not want to be your man. He wants your vagina. Anywho, I am done. I actually have to finish cooking dinner. I love you all. To Shelby and Riley and all of those who are watching me on YouTube, I appreciate all of your support. You are the reason I continue to do this show and drown out so much of the noise and so much of the verbal abuse and tongue lashing that I get on YouTube, because I know I'm on a mission to change the conversation around Black relationships, and I'm going to do it every single week, no matter what. So I want to thank you all. Thank you to those on Instagram. I appreciate you. I appreciate the support. If you're not following me on Instagram, please follow. And if you're not subscribed on YouTube, please subscribe. Share this message. Please be a part of this community to change the conversation around Black relationships. Have these uncomfortable conversations within your own families, within your own relationships. And again, I will say, if you are in a relationship right now, I'm going to ask you tonight to ask your partner, how can I love you better? It is a great conversation starter, and it's going to keep you on track. And so I thank you all. Good night to all of you. Good night to Instagram. Love you. Good night. And good night to you on YouTube. Bye.